I was recently down in New York City for the premiere of American Autumn, an OcuDoc, a film that you can watch right now. I had the opportunity to hang out for a little bit with Lee Camp. He interviewed me for the Moment of Clarity podcast, very kind of him, and I got to interview him in return for my show, and this is that interview.
Sure.
What got you involved in the movement?
I'd never met David DeGraw, and David emailed me and asked me to create a video promoting a June 14th Move Your Money and Occupation of Wall Street last year. The Move Your Money had some success. There was really no occupation to speak of. I don't quite know how I ended up finding out about it, but I knew. So the June 14th thing, they tried again on September 17th, and I don't remember who told me or whatever, but I was down there on that first night. It seemed amazing from day one, even if I didn't know whether it was going to last like days and months and stuff. That first day just seemed like it had more energy and excitement than other protests I had been at. And then I just tried to do everything I could, you know, adding my small contribution from making the somewhat funny videos, supporting it and speaking about it and everything. And I don't know. I mean, what the motivation behind it is just that, you know, you essentially have the right and the right and the far right,
Mm-hmm.
and those are the two sides you're choosing from, and I mean, there's got to be a viable third option outside of all that shit, and you know, it's got to happen eventually. It's just whether it'll happen before the car goes off the cliff or after the car goes off the cliff.
Yeah. That's interesting. Viable third option. Are you talking about like within?
I mean, the third party is fine. Like it's everything I've heard about Rocky Anderson sounds quite good.
Mm-hmm.
But if it doesn't have a shot because of the money,
Right.
then it's not really a third option.
Right,
So and so that's why it seems like the thing that seems more viable is outside of the political spectrum in terms of things like Occupy, that could kind of, I don't know, storm the gates and change the system.
I think there should be like a third and a fourth and a fifth and a 300th.
Right.
And I do appreciate like this idea of diversity of tactics, not in like the smashing stuff sort of way,
Right.
but in that there are, you know, all sorts of colors in the change rainbow. I don't know, that's a terrible metaphor.
Tools in the toolbox.
Lots of tools in the toolbox.
A more manly way you could have gone about that.
There you go.
Rather than, why you gotta bring rainbows in
I
there?
don't know, thinking unicorns and sparkles.
No, you're totally right. It's gotta come from a million different angles, and yeah, I think that's the way to create change. And I also think that's the way forward for Occupy. I think there's a lot of different things that can happen with it. You know, one of the tools was occupying a square. Another tool was the, you know, Occupy foreclosures thing, stop houses from being foreclosed on. And I think it needs to be a lot of different tools to do it.
So what do you think of the idea of voting for third-party candidates, not because that they can win, but just to, well, so 60% of the population regularly doesn't vote just because they feel that neither party represents them. They don't have a horse in the game. What do you think of voting for third-party candidates to drive that split as it's reported between 50 and 50%, and driving that down to 20 and 20%?
Driving the split down? Or
If we have 100% of the voting population, only 40% is reported on because they're the ones who vote.
Care.
Yeah, so they get that split between the 20 and 20% of the entire eligible voting population.
Right.
It ends up being reported as 50% versus 50%.
Right.
If we get the 60%, if they were split 30 and 30, even one of them would win, whoever they're voting for. Or if they all vote, like register their names as write-ins and vote for themselves, and then you have like 0.001%, you know, Joe Blow, 0.0001%, Ann Raggedy. Then it would drive down the two parties reporting down to 20% and 20%.
Right, and
show how illegitimate.
People would be like, wait, only 20? You only got 10%, and he's our president?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. I totally agree. Maybe we should do the Australia style, right? They have to vote.
Well,
I think it's mandatory. Or they have to pay a fine if they don't.
Right. The thing that about any government reform, Cenk Uygur said recently with the new, I guess, refusal to revisit Citizens United. It's like, oh, the only thing that we can do now is amend the Constitution. It's like, well, how do you do? You need 2/3 of Congress to do that, like, and they're not going to do it. So, I really think that it has to come from the people, and it's going to be, it's not going to happen this election cycle. It's not going to happen next election cycle.
I mean, I think, a lot of what is causing this problem is just the general apathy and anesthetization of people with, medication and video games. I mean, people aren't, I'm not going to say they're truly, like, happy, like they think everything's working in society, but they've got enough of those creature comforts that they aren't that upset. They're not in the streets, and they're crushed by, so you combine that with being crushed by debt, and it creates quite a good...
I question that. I mean, and only because I've been going out and talking to people doing canvassing.
But you've been talking to people in Maine.
True. However...
Go to Tampa, Florida.
Well, yeah, I don't know. But I've been talking to a lot of people who are non-voters, and I've been going and trying to register people who have never voted before in their lives, who are 65, who are 50, and whatever. And I've found that it's not because they don't care. It's they don't care because they don't feel that they have a voice.
Right.
So, I guess I would kind of question that.
Yeah.
Oh, they're anesthetized. I think it's like they just feel so completely powerless. And it's like, why bother? I'm just going to sit around and wait to die.
Yeah, but that's still a certain level of informed. Like, those people you're speaking to are informed enough to know that either the two sides are very similar on a lot of things, or they're informed enough to know that money is having a greater influence than their vote. They've got to be somewhat informed, whereas I think a lot of America is just uninformed about this stuff. I mean, Fox News viewers do worse on a quiz than people who watch no news at all.
But they also, those people also generally vote and vote Republican.
Right.
So, but what are your thoughts on the strategy of not voting? Given that, that 60% don't vote currently.
Yeah.
Which is a huge majority.
I've never really considered not voting. I am definitely ambivalent about whether putting a corporate funded Democrat in office is still better than voting for someone that doesn't have a chance. I don't know. I go back and forth. I mean, I think that the problem is and people make very persuasive arguments about, are you serious? You'd put, by voting for this guy who doesn't have a chance, you're going to put this far right-wing guy who, hates gay people and hates immigrants, you're going to allow that guy into office. And it's a very good argument. But then there's the other argument of okay, so you got the right and the left, the only two sides that you're allowed to vote for or whatever actually have a shot. And then it just slowly gets pulled farther and farther right. This guy's always going to be the less extreme, but it just ends up fucking over here. So it's like, well, how do you stop that? Well, you got to step outside of the system the way it is.
Have you studied the progressive movement of the 1920s at all?
1920s, no, not much.
Yeah, you should definitely check it out.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really good history of how third parties completely changed the political landscape in America.
Right, this was back when socialists could get a significant amount of votes.
And in fact, the Socialist Party won all sorts of citywide elections in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and held the mayoral seat until like the 1970s. Yeah, I mean, with Eugene V. Debs running for president over and over and over, he helped to push FDR to the left. The Nonpartisan League, which they fielded candidates in all the parties available, really shifted the dialogue left. And I think it was the progressive movement had the most success when first they were able to make real headway in the Republican Party, ironically enough, with people like Robert La Follette and Theodore Roosevelt. But then they were also getting into the Democratic Party, and they always had the Socialist Party as well.
Well, so I think, a couple of things have changed. One has been the money,
yeah.
And the other thing has been domination of the media by, what is it, six corporations
Yeah.
in the media. So, you see it happen with the candidacies of like Ron Paul and Kucinich and stuff. It's like the media will not cover it, and they'll
Right.
you can it's amazing how, like, Ron Paul was an interesting example because it was amazing how well he could be doing and then still make sure and avoid to ever mention his name.
Yeah.
Like, there was one or two states where he came in second. And they would, if they showed a list, they would show him on the list, number 2, Ron Paul. But then when they're talking about it, they just wouldn't mention him.
Yeah. Or the other thing that they would do is first place Mitt Romney, third place.
Yeah. Just
and then
skip it.
And then drop him down to the bottom of the list. Oh, and then Ron Paul in second place. At the very bottom of the
Right,
list.
right.
Is there any like personal experience that brought, like, why is it that you think the way that you do about these issues? Like, is there some sort of personal story behind it?
I was bit by a raccoon when I
Oh.
was 7, and I've been like this ever since. I mean, it's not an individual experience. I suppose it's a lot of things. I mean, I feel like I do remember being kind of flabbergasted when I started to learn about, like, all the lies that were kind of told in terms of history and things, and the fact that, like learning about the true history of Columbus, and then finding out not only you told these lies, but you then have to repeat them correctly on a test, and if you were to put the truth rather than the lies, you would fail the test. But no one would ever put it in those terms to you. The teacher doesn't say, "Hey, here's the bullshit story we're giving you, just write it on the exam." Instead, the teacher would sit you down and go, "You got all the answers on the test wrong," and, even if you had them all right, because you didn't give the propaganda story. And so I don't know. It took me a long time to kind of see through all that or realize all that. I'm talking like late college and things like. And I don't know. I think that was kind of an awakening into how just the level of bullshit that kind of goes on in this system, and the lies we're all taught to believe, and so I feel like that angers me a lot.
For that reason, I think it's a good thing for parents to teach their kids that Santa Claus is real. It mentally prepares them for all the bullshit that's to come later.
Yeah. It does raise the question of once you're told the truth about Santa Claus, you should then go, wait, so is all this other shit bullshit?
Exactly.
Like, wait, so it's all bullshit. Like, and I feel, I was raised Jewish and I went to synagogue and things, but synagogue is different than church in that you're not told like too many fantastical stories. A couple like Moses turned his cane into a snake or something, but and even when you're told them, they're not like, this is absolutely real. Like, they kind of tell it like a story.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like kids who grew up in church and then broke out of like that way of thinking, being like, hold on, this shit is ridiculous. Like, it kind of does prepare them for like, oh, we are told a lot of lies a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And we should be prepared to decipher what is and isn't.
I don't really have anything else.
That is it.
All right.
It's all bullshit. It's all lies. And let's go from there.